Hello my friends, hope y'all are doing well. This is a step that goes on the side of a 1909 IHC or International Harvester auto wagon. He was missing one and we're going to make him a replacement to have a set. This will require a good bit of coping down, or in this case we're going to be coping up, but you'll see that shortly. Now because of this crosshatched pattern and the fact that there's no draft angle here or here means we're not going to be able to put it in the mold like this. So we are going to cast it like that. We can use this size flask, got plenty of clearance, right? Except for the height here. Now I could go ahead and add a cheek mold to this, but there's no reason to. We have about 1 inch coming up above the flask. We're going to actually raise this a little bit and then we'll coat down. Okay, so I'll shim it up. I'm going to put about a 2 inch like that. From there, when I go to put the other flask on, that gives me roughly about 1 inch from the top of the cope. That will give me some clearance. So at this point, I'm just adding a bed of sand that's going to suspend the casting in midair, or give me that 2 inch rise in order to raise the parting line a little bit, cut down on so much of the cope. Now, all this will be discarded when I flip it over and I start coping. And I'm also going to discard of the next flip just to help establish a better parting line. Earlier last week, I was experiencing all kinds of issues with my sand muller, or so I thought. I went all through everything in my head trying to figure out what was going on. The sand just wouldn't stick together. So I didn't tear into the muller completely, but I did readjust the plows. I tried that in between each batch, mulling a new batch to test it, and I was getting the same consistent results, and it was putting a lot of resistance on the muller itself to the point it kept tripping my breaker. Very frustrating. And like I said, that went on for 3 days, and Josie happened to come by while I was testing it, and she reached in there and grabbed a handful of it, and she looked at me. And she said, is the clay content right? And as soon as she said that, it was like a deer in the headlights, guys. I've been, with tunnel vision, you get so sidetracked with everything that could possibly be going on. And at the same time, you're working on something that has nothing to do with the end results. Yes, she was right, because as I thought about it, it's been at least 6 months since I've added clay to the sand. So anyway, it's all that has been fixed. I've got clay back in the sand now, and it's doing fine as it's supposed to. And the muller is running a lot smoother because I'm not dumping so much water in there now. Yeah, it's hard for me to explain all the little steps that are involved in this process. And on the next video, I'm going to show you what we have improvised to make sure this doesn't happen again. Yes, this happens about every 6 months. I get stressed out. My sand starts falling apart on, patterns start falling out of the molds, and it all boils down to the binder in there. And over time, all that clay burns out and you have to replenish it. But anyway, we do have a process started to make sure that does not happen again. All right, so I've been running my mouth and forgetting what I'm doing here, but as you can see, I'm parting down, creating a parting line around the perimeter of this. And it's kind of a tricky parting line. The way I have this part set in there, you have several endpoints on the sides that change direction. So your parting line is going to be following the back face of that flange, and then on the sides, as it hits tangent to that perpendicular surface, it's going to switch over to the front side or the front edge surface to carry the parting line on around. I wish I could explain it better than that. I'm better at showing than I am explaining, guys, and I think you know me well enough to know by now I'm not the best at explaining things sometimes, and I would really be in trouble if I had to do an audible. In this casting, I went ahead and plugged them with sand. We're not going to try to cast the holes in here. It'd be impossible to do with it on this 45-degree angle that the flange is on. Yeah, we're getting a lot closer. As I said, we've already dumped this one side. We're going to cut it down to the parting line roughly, and then we're going to ram this up with sand, wrap it good, flip it upside down, remove that side, and discard that and make another bed. And the reason for that is it fine-tunes that parting line all the way around. And to be honest with you, I should have done this a third time. I forgot. I was supposed to do it a third time and add the finest facing sand in that crosshatch. And I didn't do it. But as you'll see, it turned out pretty good. And I have decided I'm going to go ahead and cast me another one because I want one here I can display. On top of all of this, I was having trouble with my kiln the other night. I got an element that's not making a very good connection at a lug, and I think it's about to burn out, to be honest with you. It's sparking and arcing. So it's just a matter of time, right? I'm probably fixing to go ahead and get some more nichrome and make a new element for the top half anyway, just to get me by on that. As you guys know, I do a lot of stress relieving with those elements in that kiln, and it takes a lot more abuse than what it's actually designed for. It's just a ceramics kiln that I retrofitted with a PID controller and 2 SSRs, and it's seen its better days. I've got another kiln when this thing completely disintegrates, so it's not going to be all that bad. Guys, my wife's been working really hard on the building while I've been working on the molds. As I explained on that last video, she's been putting up that overhead insulation, which that's probably one of the worst jobs I can think of. I don't work well overhead anyway, but insulation is just, it kicks me. Yeah, we're trying to get the addition partially finished, what we have started anyway. Go ahead and get that enclosed, insulated, and hopefully 3 months from now I'll be pouring a 36 by 24 slab on the interior of the 36 by 36 structure. We're going to have a bay that's a 36 by 12 foot dirt bay. That'll be where the molds will be poured. And then that's got the slab poured will be fully enclosed, insulated, and climate controlled. And I can't tell you how excited I am that we're going to get this done finally. The hot summers here in Mississippi can be brutal. And when you're trying to make sand molds, the sand will not behave consistently depending on the humidity, as I've said before. All this is going to be done in a climate-controlled room once we get it all sealed up and get the unit installed. So, it's getting very close. And my goal is, I was telling you about retiring in May or August. I think I'm leaning towards August. I was talking to Keith about it the other night, and he suggested, and it made sense, that, I can't do anything during the daytime, during the hottest part of the days anyway, because of those issues. I usually have to wait until the sun's practically going down when the temperature kind of balances out. So I may go ahead and do that. I may go ahead and hold out until August, and that way we'll have the addition completely finished, or we should be very close to that. Yeah, I'm pushing the date a few months ahead, because if I retired in May, I wouldn't be able to crank out much more production than I'm going at right now. So we're coming up on the end of this mold. Because I parted this differently and it's not a flat plane, when I get ready to shove my sprue down in there, I couldn't remember if the parting line was up higher or lower, so it's always better to go deeper than not deep enough. Once we do that, we're going to separate it, gate it, and then we'll remove the pattern. This video was made prior to me fixing the clay and the sand. I did have a little crumbling effect when I went to remove the pattern. Early signs that there's poor clay content in the sand. Usually would be cracks in the sand, crumbling. When you go to lift the mold up and half of it dumps out on the floor, which is usually followed by a lot of vulgar, loud words, that's a good indicator that your clay content's getting low. Now we're going to cut the gates. Now, since we're not dealing with a flat plane here on the parting line, we are going up and down here. So we have to keep the depth of that runner consistent from one end to the other. It can be kind of tricky at first, but I mean, it's not that bad. You just don't want to have any shallow areas there that could choke off iron. I said this sand was on the wetter side because I hadn't added more clay to it at this point. So with that said, I had to torch the molds and dry off the extra moisture. Okay, so this part of the drag, which is going to be down, is finished. We're going to set that in place carefully. And now we have to work on getting that casting out of the cope. And it didn't just fall out. I did have to wrap it a little bit. And then I just turned the mold upside down and had to rock it back and forth, and it eventually fell out of there. Once we pull this out, we're going to cut the pouring basin, put this thing together, and pour it. This is the original. This is the one we just cast. You gotta hit it with the belt sander just a little bit, smooth that edge up a little bit, but other than that, this is ready to stress relief. I'm gonna go ahead and drill the holes here just in case there's some chill on that sharp corner here. I'll find it now. But if I hit good soft iron, this guy should be ready to mount this matching set on his vehicle. let's do a box opening. This goes in a drill press. Let me see if I can get over here and show you a little better. And it's made by a friend of mine, Dave Clark. He is Dave Clark, the pattern guy. And anyway, this goes in a drill press, and you use it, you put sandpaper on the bottom of it, pressure sensitive adhesive type paper, and you can sand small stuff with this. Unlike running it through a planer to try to get it parallel, you can actually put this down on the drill press table, get the table level, and then back it up to the right height that you want. You can sand safely and effectively on smaller stuff. So I'm anxious to put it to use. If you are not aware of Dave Clark, he started a channel not too long ago, and the name of it is Dave Clark, the Pattern Guy. And I'm very thankful he's come along, because there were a lot of, I kept telling you guys at some point, I'm going to stop everything and we're just going to go over everything I know, which is very little compared to Dave, on pattern making, because of the issues that I keep running into. So with that said, check his channel out. He is a new channel, but he's steadily loading more and more videos, and he's going to be able to give you a very well-rounded, in-depth approach to pattern making, opposed to me. So check him out. He did a great job getting all that mess off these shelves. Got a little bit left here. We'll go through that next week, and then we're going to rip these out and save the lumber. You never know. She's going to insulate this wall and that wall down there, because the corner of the addition out here on the front goes, it's right there, to this truss here. Once she does that, we'll put some visqueen over it temporarily until we get the slab done on the inside of this building. Originally, I was going to go to just this truss to the back corner back there and then out 24 feet. We decided it may as well go ahead and enclose this whole area. Yeah, the tank's got to go too. And we're going to make this, instead of a 24 by 24 on the inside here, we're going to make it a 24 by 36. With that said, down here, about where that 2 by 4 is right there, that's going to be a header. We're going to put a header there, and the ceiling will be about that height in the front addition, and then it'll come out here and it'll step up, and then it'll come out across the room in here. 10-foot ceilings in this part, 8-foot ceilings in the front part. That's going to be a doorway on the other side of that drill press. That whole thing's just going to be one open doorway. With that said, I got to figure out what I'm going to do about these lathes. The drill press is my dad's. It's a Clausing, and it's a auto feed. Belt broke on it, and just haven't messed with it, but it's got a 220 motor. And I don't know if I ever showed you guys this, but this was my first muller. I built this contraption, and it was driven by that hydrostatic, and you can see it was mounted on a axle, and on top of the axle is particle board, and the wheel that was running off of this transmission ran the bottom of the table, spun the wash tub, and my compression wheel and plows were in there. And the compression wheel, if you're wondering how I didn't eat up the bottom of the wash tub, well, there's a 1/2-inch thick plate, steel plate that rides on. It worked. You know, it was a little tedious to keep going, but I mean, it did the job. It still beat trying to do all that by hand. We still got flasks to get out, and yeah, I got metal flasks. I just don't use them. Gotta get my roof out of here too. That's a long story. Originally, that was keeping that lathe dry before we got the new roof. I had so many leaks in this building, it was embarrassing. So I just built this temporary lean-to shed over the lathe just to keep it dry. All right, guys, I'll tie it up here. I said enough. And I hope y'all have a great remainder of the weekend, and I will talk to y'all soon.